Biological survival depends on constant, high-speed data exchange. Your body processes gigabytes of information, reacting in a millisecond to keep you alive. To manage this massive data load, the human body operates on an intricate, highly specialized bioelectrical communication network. At the core is the central nervous system. Encased in the skull and vertebrae, it acts as the executive processor for all data. But a processor needs a collection network. This is the peripheral nervous system. Millions of individual nerve fibers branch out from the spinal cord to the very tips of your fingers and toes, constantly gathering external intelligence and executing physical commands. To survive a hostile, unpredictable environment, this dual network system must execute commands across billions of cells in fractions of a second. The peripheral nerves making up this grid do not operate randomly. They function as a highly organized two-way highway of information. On one side of the road, you have sensory nerves. Their specific function is to detect external environmental data, like a shift in temperature or a sudden pain, and transmit that signal inward to the central nervous system. Running in the opposite direction are motor nerves. They carry the executive commands outward from the brain and spinal cord down to the physical effectors, like your muscles, instructing them to move. When you pick up a cold bottle of soda, your sensory pathways immediately fire off a temperature reading. Opening the bottle, however, requires your motor pathways to trigger the exact sequence of muscle contractions in your hand to twist the cap. Routing every single piece of sensory data all the way up to the brain for a conscious decision requires a massive amount of processing overhead. For urgent situations, that delay is highly inefficient. To optimize reaction speed, the nervous system physically segregates its commands. It divides the workload into high-level conscious computing and low-level automated protocols. Voluntary actions are the processes that require executive computation from your brain. Reading a book, speaking a sentence, or kicking a football all demand focused, conscious processing. Because these actions require conscious thought and decision-making, the data processing inherently takes time. Involuntary actions are automated baseline protocols. They operate entirely in the background, without any conscious input, decision, or memory required on your part. These continuous functions, like the rhythmic beating of your heart or the complex chemical breakdown of food in your stomach, maintain the organism's life independently. Other automated functions act as precise defense mechanisms. When a sudden flash of bright light hits your eye, your pupil instantly constricts to protect the sensitive retina. By delegating critical biological maintenance and rapid defense functions to these automated subroutines, the body guarantees continuous, fail-safe operation without ever overwhelming the brain's processing power. This system of local automation peaks with the body's ultimate physical defense mechanism, the reflex arc. Consider a real-world survival event. You accidentally brush your hand against the hot metal of a glowing charcoal sagiri. Touching hot metal triggers pain receptors, generating a high-voltage warning. This impulse rockets up the sensory neuron into the spinal cord. It hits a relay neuron, a hardware short circuit bypassing the brain, instantly firing an evacuation command down the motor neuron. The bicep violently contracts. Here is the biological reality of what just happened. Your brain did not compute that movement. It did not authorize it. While your hand was recoiling, your brain didn't even know the event was taking place. In a life-or-death scenario, the spinal cord acts as a localized, independent relay hub. It overrides executive awareness entirely to prioritize immediate tissue preservation over conscious thought. If your hand moves away from the fire instantly, why does the intense sensation of burning pain arrive a fraction of a second later? You experience a chronological delay of data. As the relay neuron triggered the reflex arc, it simultaneously sent a carbon copy of the event data up the spinal column to the brain. By the time that signal reaches the brain's cortex and is consciously processed, your hand is already safe. The brain then generates the sensation of pain as a severe psychological warning to avoid that specific hazard in the future. The conscious feeling of pain is merely an executive review of a catastrophic event that your body's local automation has already resolved. This high-speed bioelectrical network operates at extreme speeds, but this efficiency creates a severe vulnerability to external chemical interference. The primary choke points of this system are the synapses, the microscopic gaps between individual nerve cells. Electrical signals must jump these gaps to deliver their messages. When psychoactive substances enter the bloodstream, they physically flood these delicate junctions. They act as dense barriers, effectively scrambling, delaying, or completely smothering the electrical signals trying to cross. We see this structural interference clearly with the localized abuse of stimulants, specifically the chewing of myrungi or khat leaves. There is a pervasive misconception among students that chewing myrungi sharpens focus and acts as an effective academic study aid. The reality is the exact opposite. While the chemicals temporarily mask physical fatigue by blocking specific neural receptors, they actively degrade healthy synaptic function over time. They destroy memory retention and severely impair complex thought processes. Chemical abuse introduces potent structural disruptors that break the body's hardware at the cellular level. That microscopic cellular failure rapidly scales up to macroscopic, real-world consequences. When synaptic transmission is degraded by chemicals like alcohol, the signals from your sensory receptors to your brain and back to your muscles hit constant roadblocks. This results directly in drastically slower motor response times throughout your entire body. In a high-stakes environment, a compromised nervous system is lethal. Navigating dense, chaotic traffic requires peak neurological performance to process dozens of moving variables at once. This chart demonstrates the precise danger of operating a vehicle under the influence. An optimal human reaction time safely triggers the brakes in 0.2 seconds, but an alcohol-delayed nervous system extends that reaction window drastically, guaranteeing a catastrophic collision before the motor nerves even fire. The chronic impairment of these pathways often correlates with broader social failures. As chemical dependency erodes the executive control required for complex tasks, the resulting instability translates to increased risks of school dropouts and domestic conflict. The economic deficits follow immediately. A failing nervous system leads to poor performance and lost employment, while the financial drain of purchasing the substances and paying heavy medical rehabilitation bills collapses a family's financial foundation. Your nervous system is the ultimate, indispensable command center governing your survival. Protecting its biological integrity by rejecting chemical disruption is the single most critical baseline for ensuring your future economic and physical security.